Good morning and a good end of morning as well. So my name is Aurélien Laurent from the Coax Foundation. So today we have the third match for the two teams in this group A, so between Sofia University and King's College London. They received a topic which was connected this time to trade and as well multinational corporations. That was a week ago. They received the topic. And they will have this final debate match for the group phase today. And we think as well the judge will be watching the match in France, in India, and as well in the US. So I will give the floor, of course, to the students. I remind, of course, that the accumulation of all the matches, so they already got two matches, plus this match, will determine the ranking for this group. So now for this match, I would like to hear as well the students introducing themselves again, last time for this group phase. I will give the floor first to Miss Guzminova. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Sophie. I am a first year dual degree law student in English law and French law, representing King's College London.
Welcome. And in Sofia, we have Miss Nedelina Stoyanova. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Nedelina, and I'm a second-year law student at Sofia University. It's really nice to meet you all, and I hope we have a nice match.
Thank you, welcome. We have as well in London, Mr. Josas Chepla. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Josas Cepla. I am a first-year Law LLB student representing King's College London, and I wish best of luck to all.
Thank you and welcome. And we have as well in Sofia, Miss Karina Ristova. Welcome.
Hello, I'm also a second-year law student in Sofia University. I wish good luck to all the participants. Yeah.
Thank you. And we have as well Miss Carla Ross in London. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Carla. I'm studying a dual degree at King's College as well in English law and German law. And yeah, I'm excited to meet a team from Sofia and excited for a good match.
Thank you very much. We send greetings as well, and we give the floor to the coach. So there is one coach within the room, Miss Maya Angelova. Welcome, former participant as well.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maya. I'm one of the coaches of the Sofia University team in this competition this year. I'm really excited to be here today and to see this match. So I wish both teams good luck.
Thank you very much. And we send greetings as well to Mr. Martin Kuchukov, who will be watching the match probably. And we send greetings as well to the whole ELSA King's College London, who is supporting this team as well during the competition, the team from London. So the topic which was sent a week ago was sustainable supply chains should be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trade. So now we know which position each team will have. I will share my screen. And we'll see the randomizer. So now you should see the logos of your institutions, the double flags as well, of the country where your institution is. There is two chances, one chance to be in favor, one chance to be against the motion. So the team will be in favor, we'll be starting the first introduction. So for this match, the team in favor will be the King's College London, and will be giving the first introduction, while Sofia University will be against the motion. So it means concretely, King's College London will defend the position that sustainable supply chain should be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trade, while Sofia University will defend the position that sustainable supply chains should not be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trade. So now you will have 5 minutes to review your notes, and after the 5 minutes we will hear the introduction by the team from London. So we are done with the 5 minutes of preparation, so I stop sharing my screen. And before we'll be starting with the introduction by the team from London, I want to inform everybody that, of course, when you see the yellow card, it means you still have 30 seconds in your speaking time. You can continue to speak, obviously. And when you will see the red card, it means the end of your speaking time. You may finish your sentence, but not start a new sentence. So now, for the introduction, I give the floor to the King's College London. For your introduction, you have 4 minutes.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay. Then I will start in 3, 2, 1. Dear ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, team from Sofia, I will represent King's College London, and I'm the first speaker today. Over 160 million children worldwide are subjected to forced labor, and almost half of them work under seriously dangerous conditions, many under the supply chains of multinational corporations. Therefore, we stand firmly in proposal of the motion that sustainable supply chains should be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trades. First, we like to define some of the terms. Sustainability ensures that the development of current generations doesn't compromise needs of future generations. We focus mainly on the environmental and the social aspect of sustainability. Sustainable supply chains therefore checked that the supplier adheres to certain social and environmental standards and thereby creates a positive cascade effect. A legal requirement in our definition is that it should be implemented through binding international law, and multinational corporations involved in trade are companies that trade and supply in more than one country and participate in economic activities for their own profit. Relevant legislation that's already implemented is the German Supply Chain Due Diligence Act of 2023. It requires companies to ensure that their suppliers within their supply chain adhere to those human rights or environmental standards. Based on that, there will be an upcoming EU Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive that aims to expand these obligations through all member states of the European Union. This will ensure that there is moral responsibility that the multinational corporations have to take. The multinational corporations are some of the largest contributors to environmental damage and certain labor conditions. Therefore, making it a legal requirement ensures that they stay morally responsible. Examples of that are laws that prevent corporations so far already from profiting off forced labor or pollution so that everyone can benefit from our economy long term. Also, this will ensure long-term profitability for those corporations. Sustainable supply chains can mitigate certain risks such as damage to their reputation or penalties they have to pay for because they don't adhere to those standards. If there is a breach in their supply chain, it also allows the victim to get a remedy if it's a legal requirement rather than just a responsibility that they implement within their industry. Therefore, this will all lead to long-term profitability, as consumers are actually willing to pay more for sustainability. A study from PwC found out that they are willing to pay almost 10% more for consumer goods if those goods are produced sustainable. And there are a lot of brands that show that sustainability can be profitable. Therefore, we conclude that making the supply chain of goods sustainable is not just good for our planet, for the people, but also for to ensure that moral standards are actually translated into practice. It ensures profitability for corporations as well. They allow the victims a remedy and ensure more transparency for the consumer. Therefore, we firmly stand with the motion that sustainable supply chains should be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear as well the introduction on the side of Sofia University. You have as well 4 minutes.
I'm audible at this floor.
Yes, you are.
Good afternoon to the fellow judges and to my colleagues from King's College London. On behalf of myself and my teammate Nedelina, we are very pleased to discuss the topic why sustainable supply chains should not be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trade. We recognize the importance of sustainable supply chains to ensure the environmental protection, the working conditions, the basic human rights, but we believe that legal measures will not achieve the desired result. Practice has shown that international law regulations haven't been really successful. And this is evident from the irresistible attempts to impose the Green Deal, to regulate artificial intelligence, space explorations, and so on. For each issue, there are some countries which compel and others which refuse to do so because of their political and economic interests. And therefore, regulations fail to become widespread adopted, and therefore they become an ineffective measure. What's more, the countries which compel the legal requirements are often less technologically and economically developed. And example of this is that China and the USA have marked a significant development in the area of artificial intelligence, but they are refusing to adopt any regulations to protect human rights. And these facts only prove that legal measures are not an effective approach to deliver sustainable supply chains. Other approaches, such as cooperations between countries, incentives, and so on, are proved to be far more effective. For instance, the European Union emission trade systems, which is a financial incentive-based system aimed at reducing greenhouse gases emissions, demonstrates how financial stimulus rather than legal sanctions can be an effective tool for motivating multinational corporations to adopt environmentally responsible practices. In support of our view that international legislation is not an effective approach for delivering sustainable supply chains, we would like to provide you with 3 additional arguments. Firstly, due to the nature of international law, there is no mechanism in place to enforce legal requirements on companies, making such legal requirements ineffective. Secondly, existing national laws and regulations effectively address the need for sustainable supply chains, making international legal framework unnecessary. Lastly, legal requirements for sustainable supply chains impose a significant economic burden on the multinational corporations, particularly due to the high costs of compliance, monitoring, and reporting. To begin with, due to the nature of international law, there is no mechanism in place to enforce legal requirements on multinational corporations, which makes such requirements ineffective. For instance, there are a lot of cases where subjects have been condemned by international courts, and these subjects refuse to comply with the judgment. For example, in the case Chevron versus Ecuador before the Permanent Court of Arbitration, despite a ruling in favor of the Ecuador plaintiffs, Chevron company refused to comply with the consequences, pointing to the lack of effective enforcement mechanisms within international law. And all these results are because international law relies only on the goodwill of its subjects and has no means of enforcement or effective sanctions to those who fail to comply. This means that multinational corporations, which have no economic interests to change their working methods, will not do so, simply because of adoptions of some legislative measures. And rather than legal requirements, we need more effective mechanisms to enforce sustainable supply chains. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the first rebuttals. We hear first the rebuttal by the King's College London. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to thank the opposition for making the argument. However, we choose to disagree with the argument on the following basis. First of all, you mentioned a lack of international enforcement mechanisms. I'm sorry. However, you also mentioned how EU financial incentives for sustainable business practices have worked positively in encouraging said sustainable business practices. I would like to contest the point that there are no international enforcement mechanisms. As per se, as was expounded by Anu Bradford, there is this thing called the Brussels effect, which EU, through its regulation and subsequent access to the EU, makes multinational corporations adhere to European Union's regulations, which, as my colleague explained, already incorporate requirements for sustainability, or will do so with its newly introduced directive. The Brussels effect works in this way that if a multinational corporation wants to trade in EU, it has to abide its regulations. And because of the high costs in differentiating products for non-EU and EU markets, the corporation often has no choice but to simply do the sustainable product everywhere. Moreover, I would like to further contest the point of lack of international legal enforcement in the case of Nauru against Australia in 1989, which was an International Court of Justice case in which the International Court of Justice recognized Nauru's claims for environmental damage done by Australian corporations. Because of the ICJ's recognition of said claims, Australia later on ended up settling and compensating Nauru for its damage. So therefore, I would like to say, while the international enforcement mechanisms are not perfect, it is still better to rely on them than to have no legal remedies or no remedies whatsoever in enforcing sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we hear as well the first rebuttal on the side of Sofia University. You have 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Then I will start. First, I would like to thank the proposing team for their arguments, but we would like to disagree as a team with something, and this is something that the proposing team mentioned in their opening statement, which is that companies have already shown that sustainability can be profitable, which means that even the proposing team recognizes that there have been measures taken on a corporate level to make supply chains more eco-friendly and sustainable. And as well, for the human rights claim that human rights are not respected, we would also like to disagree with this because while ensuring accountability is important, there are voluntary frameworks already in place that and consumer pressure as well have proven effective in encouraging sustainable practices. Which leads us to our second argument, which is that national laws ensure sustainability supply chains, making global legal requirements very unnecessary. For example, the European Union Supply Chain Law from 2023 mandates due diligence on human rights and environmental impacts, while the United Kingdom's Modern Slavery Act from 2015 enforces transparency. For example, in the Doe versus Nestle United States of America Incorporated case from 2021, the Ninth Circuit Court confirmed that U.S. companies could be and should be held liable for human rights violations even abroad. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises, in its guidelines from 2011, though voluntary, set a global corporate sustainability standard. These laws, all of them show that domestic regulations effectively enforce sustainability without the need for international mandates that could cause harm and could be very expensive for all companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are moving to the second rebuttals. I'll give the floor to the team from King's College London for your second rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
I would like to thank the opposing team for presenting its counter arguments. However, once again, we would like to disagree with those counter arguments on, first of all, the basis that the reason why the Nestle case you mentioned, or the UK legislation in particularly, or the EU legislation works so well in enforcing sustainability is not because it's national law per se, but it's because the countries, their markets are so important. And in the UK's case, a lot of companies even sign their contracts to be litigated in English courts because of the rigidness of the England's contract system. And because of their markets and their preferable legal systems, these jurisdictions have the power to change the way companies operate internationally. As, say, Nestle, it's a massive multinational corporation, and yet it changes its laws because of certain jurisdictions which hold international sway. So it would be unfair to call it national legislation because it does not confine its influence in the nation concerned, but rather it influences the world as a whole, whether intentionally or not. Moreover, I would like to address the fact that there has been a study conducted by the United Kingdom Nuffield Institute during the COVID pandemic, in which it has shown that even if a law is not enforced, even if it is vaguely worded. Just because a law is present, people will abide the spirit of the law, which in this case would be more environmentalism, which I believe is a unarguably positive thing. So even if the laws are unenforced, it would be still better to have them because of the presence of legal morality in many people's moral compasses, and the simple fact that consumers may choose to consume more sustainably, or corporations may choose to act more sustainably just because a law is there as opposed to a law not being there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we hear the second button on the side of Sofia University. You have also 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you again to the proposing team for their arguments and statements, but we would like to disagree because the said UK law, it works well because it is made specifically for the businesses, the corporations that are in this. I'm very sorry, I forgot the word in English. It's made for companies that are on this market. The big companies on this market, and saying that they work well, it is a one-size-fits-all approach, and this approach is not, it would not be beneficial, especially for smaller companies and developing nations, because strict law regulations would not attract foreign investment. And that is very important for small companies in developing countries, for developing nations, to support their economic growth. And now I would like to continue to our third and final argument, which is that legal requirements for sustainable supply chains impose significant economic burdens on corporations due to high costs of compliance, monitoring, and reporting. For example, in the European Union Non-Financial Reporting Directive from 2014, it requires large companies to disclose detailed information on their sustainability practices, which forces companies to invest in comprehensive reporting system, making it very, very expensive. In the case of Volkswagen versus the European Commission, the company faced substantial penalties for failure to meet environmental regulations, highlighting the financial risks of non-compliance. And these compliance requirements disproportionately impact smaller companies, as I've already mentioned, especially in developing countries, which may not have the financial capacity to meet such strict regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we're reaching the conclusions. I would like to give the floor for the conclusion to King's College London. You have 2 minutes.
Just to check, I'm audible and can be heard.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I will start in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable team from Sofia University and honorable judges. Today's debate mainly focuses on the main point of dispute, the necessity of enforceability. Firstly, consider this. Over 160 million children and adults are forced into labor under hazardous conditions. In my opinion, personally, this can be seen as an ethical failure to allow such companies to go through legal loopholes to allow to just gain economic benefits. Considering the hard law imposed within countries such as that of Germany, and as well as the EU directives that have been proposed, it is clear that we need to have some sort of legal implementation, some legal precedent to protect human rights and environmental sustainability. We are not arguing against the economic benefits that perhaps it can be provided. What we are arguing, however, is that it needs to be done so ethically, and that it should not come at the cost of human rights or environmental sustainability. The opposition argued that it is difficult to enforce such practices, that on a global scale that this would be impossible and that this would be frankly harmful to small businesses. Yet we disagree. Mechanisms are already being put in place, mechanisms are already being introduced, and therefore we need to continue doing so. Having some measures on an international level is a necessity. It is better to have some measures than no measures at all. It is better to have some measures than to be complacent in human rights violations and environmental violations. Therefore, consider the human standpoint, and therefore it is necessary to implement legal measures to protect sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we'll hear as well the conclusion on the side of Sofia University. You have as well 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm visible.
Yes, you are.
I would first like to thank the other team for their arguments, but we would like to disagree with them. To begin with, we do not refuse the need for measures for sustainable supply chains. We impose on the fact that legal requirements are not effective. And what's more, the other team given examples for some cases where parties choose to respect the jurisdiction's decisions. But the fact that there are cases where the parties refuse to compel is the biggest problem of international law, because the lack of mechanisms to enforce legal requirements on all multinational corporations is a problem. And moreover, there were given a lot of examples of EU regulations, but the mechanisms of the European Union and its structure are far more different than the international law system. And this is why the two systems cannot be compared one to another. In conclusion, first of all, we pointed out that due to the nature of international law, there is no mechanism in place to enforce legal requirements on multinational corporations. Therefore, such requirements are ineffective. Secondly, we address that existing national laws and regulations effectively address the need for sustainable supply chains, and therefore there's unnecessary to adopt international legislation. And lastly, we argued that international legal framework for sustainable supply chains impose a significant economic burden on the multinational corporations, particularly due to the high costs of compliance reporting and monitoring. And in conclusion, we have illustrated through our arguments that sustainable supply chains should not be a legal requirement for all multinational corporations involved in trade, as this is ineffective and counterproductive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We just heard the two conclusions. So from now, you are not under evaluation by the judge. So in the part of the session which is after the match, which just finished, we will be, of course, collecting your impression on this match, and as well the debate topic, the performance of both teams. And finally, we'll finish with the networking part, which will be managed by my colleague in the Corax Foundation, Miss Kaya Lal. So now I give the floor, so you can all of you come back and open your camera. So I give the floor to Miss Guzminova. What did you think about this match, the topic, and the performance of both teams?
I thought both teams did really well in this match. I think the topic is very interesting, especially considering that from at least our research, we've seen that a lot of things have been changed, like in terms of especially in the recent decade on this topic, and how sustainability is becoming more and more of a point of contention. And obviously this situation is very volatile, so hopefully we see much more development in this area.
Thank you very much. Miss Stoyanova, what do you think about the topic?
I think the topic was very interesting. It was, again, something new, something I've never read about, because we've all heard of Shein and Temu and those places where, there is a mass production. And it has recently been made such an important topic to consider supply chains and its sustainability and safety regarding human rights. So it was very interesting to read something more and do a research regarding this. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chipla, what do you think about the match?
I enjoyed the topic. I enjoyed the match. Both teams presented very good arguments. I particularly enjoyed the topic because it was something that shows up in the media and in contemporary discussions very often. So just after hearing the topic, we already had some, general knowledge about it to start as a foundation for our further argument. So that was lovely, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Miss Ristova, what do you think of the topic?
For me, the topic was also really interesting. There are some new things which I learned through the process, and other which I already knew. But yes, it was very interesting to prepare, to research, and the debate and the arguments for the other team was some of them new, and it was really, really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Miss Ross, what do you think about the match?
I really liked the match. I think the team from Sofia did a really good job, and it was a really good debate. And I really like the topic as well, especially because it's also, again, it's a strong involvement of also private actors. So you can also kind of refer to how private areas of law, so like civil law, would play into it. And therefore, it's also like a very complex topic, as other people have already said, a lot of different arguments that you can build upon. So I really enjoyed the topic. I think it was my favorite topic from the 3 we had so far. So yeah.
Thank you. And now I will ask as well one coach within the room. What did you think about the match, Miss Angelova?
I think the match was really interesting. Both teams were very well prepared, so I congratulate them both on their work. And regarding the topic, I would say that me and the other coach, Martin, we were discussing the topic, and we realized that in the past 3 years, this is the first topic about trade, as far as we remember. So it's a really unique topic for the competition, and it was quite a challenge to prepare for it, especially because here in Bulgaria we study trade law in the 4th year, and none of the participants nor us as coaches have studied yet. But it was really interesting to dive into this topic. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. I mean, in general, in Europe, we talk a lot about fast fashion, not just in law, but as well in business studies, in economics, in design, etc. So and obviously, that has an impact on the environment. So that's why in the Corax Foundation we thought that would be a good idea to bring it on indeed the debate for the international trade cooperation, all the bilateral agreements as well. So many thanks, and now I give the floor to Miss Kayalal. Miss Kayalal is vice world champion of the competition from last year. And this year she's supporting us in the Corax Foundation, so she will be doing the networking part. So the floor is yours in New Zealand.
Thank you, Professor Laurent. First of all, great job, everyone. It was really interesting listening to everyone's arguments. Awesome job. So now it's time for the fun part, the networking. So the first question is more related to your legal careers. So I'm sure as law students, you've been exposed to various areas of law. So with that, is there any area in particular that you're interested in pursuing after you graduate? Perhaps we could start.
I have been currently thinking about pursuing competition law, because even though I do study in London, I am an EU citizen. I come from Lithuania, and most of the frameworks for competition law throughout the world have been based on either EU law or American law. So it would be a very international career, which is something that I enjoy, and also from what I've heard, it sounds very interesting. It sounds almost like some mafia movie, if I may call it that. But all in all, those are my career objectives for the time being. Thank you.
How interesting. Wishing you all the best for that. Could we have Miss Ristova from Sofia, please?
Yes. As I'm a second-year law student, I don't have pure objectives, but for now, I'm interested in trade and tax law. These are my interests for now, and I would like to make a career in this field of law. But as I said, I'm not really into these fields. So for now, it's only interest, and yes.
That's awesome as well. There's so many areas of law, so it's great that you're keeping your options open. Next up, could we have Miss Guzmanova, please?
So I guess for me, considering I'm a first year, I'm still discovering obviously a lot of different like fields. Like obviously, I think like when you're at school, you're told like there's like these like key like I think fields, but currently I'm thinking of either going into international law, as it is allowed to do so like in my with my dual degree to study that, and alternatively probably IP law as it's quite flexible to work with any other industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, could we hear from Miss Stoyanova, please?
Thank you. Me personally, I would like to pursue either European Union law or corporate law, international corporate law, something like this.
Awesome. I'm seeing corporate law is the commonality. And finally, Miss Roth.
So yeah, I think I would rather move away from the corporate law area. So not really like a common factor here. Right now, I'm doing some work with an NGO that's doing human rights law and criminal law with supporting death penalty cases in the US. And so far, I really found this work really, really interesting. I'm also only first year law, so it will take a while until I graduate, especially with the double degree. So it's not like at all set. But so far, I really enjoyed supporting that work. And yeah, so maybe something like that, human rights law and criminal law, like the intersection, I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone's got an interesting pathway, and I look forward to seeing you all succeed. So, our last question is related more towards your country, and it's if you were to invite the opposing team to your city, what cultural event would you like them to attend? So perhaps starting off with the team from King's College London, could we have Miss Guzmanova, please?
I'd say in London at the very least. There's many like wonderful places all around the UK, but in London, I think in particularly, I quite like, I think, especially during like winter time, there's quite a lot of like, it's very decorated. There's loads of different activities to do. There is a bunch of Christmas markets, so I would definitely recommend going around then. As also I think it's when I think there's a lot of different holidays that are happening around that time. And considering that London is very multicultural, there's a lot of things happening all the time. So yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Now from Sofia University, Miss Ristova.
Uh, for in Sofia, there are a lot of cultural events, for example, theaters, operas, concerts, and they're really interesting. But what's more, we have one beautiful light festival in spring, and in this festival, the famous buildings in Sofia are colored in different countries, and this is really beautiful and is different every year. But I think this is one of the most beautiful things in our capital.
That does sound really fun. Thank you for sharing. Could we have Mr. Sepla?
Thank you. I think my colleague explained London really well, but what I like to add is there's something in London for everybody, whether your interests are sports, arts, music, etc. You'll probably find an event of global importance happening in London. Recently speaking, I went to a bunch of musicals, specifically Hamilton and Phantom of the Opera, which can be considered cultural events if we're defining the latter term very liberally. So I really enjoyed them. So if that's your thing, I definitely recommend going there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Miss Stoyanova, please.
Well, when I think of cultural events in Sofia, since it's quite a big city and the traditional, like more cultural stuff happens usually in the smaller towns, the villages, and so on. A cultural event I would say is Jazz Fest. during the summer. It's very nice. There are a lot of different artists that come and play, and it's free for everyone. You just go to the park and you can walk your dog. A lot of people have picnics, and you can drink Aperol Spritz and just enjoy some good music with your friends or your family or your dog, whatever makes you happy. This is a cultural event I really enjoy going to every summer. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. And now, Miss Roth, if you have something additional to share.
I mean, yeah, I guess in London there's always something going on, and both of my colleagues have already mentioned a few things. I could maybe add to that, which I think is really, the Barbican. It's a cultural center, brutalist style, somewhere pretty much close in north central London, and it's built to basically have everything in there: library, theater, cinema, to be a complete cultural hub. And yeah, brutalist architecture, that's a style that one likes. Yeah, and it's quite interesting because yeah, it's like a small city within that center, and it has a nice little area where you can sit close to the water, because they built a little water area in the middle. And in spring, just last weekend, I was there and just sitting there in the sun. It was really, really nice. And yeah, it's a great cultural hub as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've personally noted down some events as well, so I hope to visit when I go. As a former participant, I cannot express how important it is to network with your opposing colleagues. Again, given how small law is, it's important to network with each other, even if it's through LinkedIn. So thank you so much once again, and I'm handing it back over to Mr. Laurent.
Yes, many thanks. So that was a great match, and that was the third match. So it means the combination of all your three matches will give the ranking. We thank again the judge for watching the match in the next hours and rewatching the match, even if needed, for filling the forms. Of course, we'll communicate to you first by email the score sheets from the judge, and then we publish. We have a lot of results to publish, so the teams, they get the information first, but then we have to make sure the day 1 and the day 2, day 3 get published in this way to make the calculation, of course, properly when we publish it. So yes, during the next 2 days it will come. Of course, the other groups are finalizing as well their last match, so that is running actually this week and early next week, and there will be for 2 groups as well some let's say postponed match from day 1, because in Australia and as well in Africa they have a different academic system, so they will be having their match early April, but you will know already from your group. So hopefully, yeah, this week from the judge. So we thank all of you, of course, for this match again, for having explored what's happening concerning the supply chains, fast fashion, and the multinational corporation currently. And we keep in touch, and we see you very soon for other activities, not just for the match, but as well for networking in mid-April. And this is the moment when all the teams will meet, all of them, in one moment, for us to have some activities. So many thanks again. We thank you and wish you the best to concerning this week in London and in Sofia, and of course we keep in touch. Thank you very much. Thank you, bye-bye.